Welcome to episode 12. Let's check out what you can expect this week. It's not like everybody's writing in the margins. There's going to be a digital management element to it where all the comments will be chronologically stamped. All the comments will be related to who posted it. The comments can be on text, or most of the good ones are going to let you put it on an image too.
Sorry, that never clicked with me until right now. Perusall. Okay,
Yep.
See?
Perusall. Yep.
I've said this like 400 times, and it's
You
never
heard it here
clicked
first, folks.
until
Josh
this
just got
immediate
it.
moment. Okay. Welcome to another high-tech podcast. You're listening with Josh Swartz and the great William Illingworth. I
Oh.
added that in front of your title.
The great?
I feel like your name works well with that type of stuff. You know what I
Oh.
mean? Like the great William Illingworth, or like Sir William Illingworth.
This is way too much me. I don't like it. Let's back out.
It's fine. Okay, I'm
No.
just saying, if I put Sir in front of my name, it sounds lame. Sir Josh Swartz. You know, that sounds
Well.
like a white guy from America trying to be a knight, which is exactly what this is. So,
You'll be my knight in shining armor.
oh, thanks, buddy. Anyway, welcome to the High Tech Podcast, folks. Another week, another tool, more technology, more education.
Wait, what are we here to talk about?
That's what we do. Wait, we're not here to talk about Star Wars?
Oh, bummer. It is May the 4th, so
It
May the
is,
4th
yeah.
be with you. And
It is May the 4th. That almost, that last part of that sentence. Anyway, yes. So, breaking the fourth wall, we record way earlier than you actually listen to them. So,
breaking the fourth
I don't
wall
know
on May
when-
the 4th.
on May the 4th. I don't know when you're listening to this episode because I'd have to look at our release calendar, but I'm pretty sure it's not May the 4th.
It's like
because
July.
That's today. So yeah, welcome guys. Excited for this episode. We got some great topics we're gonna come up to. I do have to say one thing. I'm really excited. Will and I are both recording with the exact same mics now.
Finally.
It's
We
12
were.
episodes.
We were recording with the same mic at one point, but it was
Sort of.
Josh's audio was better. I felt bad about mine. Now we both have the same quality microphone that will make sure, and our recording method. You know, everything's different. Let's just restart the podcast. So welcome.
Yeah.
This is the High Tech Podcast, and we're here to talk about nothing. That doesn't
Episode
matter.
1. Let's talk about ourselves again. That's exactly what everybody wants to hear.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Yeah, this is mine. Yeah, no, we're excited though because we got like real podcast mics, folks. You can't see this right now, but we feel legit. I feel cooler right now. So that's all I gotta say. There we go. That's our introduction. Welcome.
Perfect. So this week, right, we are going to be digging into one of those moments where we actually have a significant conversation. It leads to the app. Sometimes they're disjointed. Sometimes we picked an app, we picked a topic. They don't happen to be very similar. But tonight, we are digging into the idea of web annotation, digital annotation, and then we're going to follow up with a product that gets into the topic. Now, we have talked on one in the past. We talked about a tool called Hypothesis, which is a good tool, but you of course, have probably listened to that episode at this point. You know what we think on that one. This tool tonight is going to be similar features, whole different suite and experience.
Yeah.
So we hope you really enjoy the one we're going to talk about a little bit
Can
later.
actually recommend using it.
Yeah, hey. I recommend a Hypothesis too for specific things, like all of our tools. They may not be a sponsor, but let's not keep them from being a sponsor.
That's fine. Yeah. Sorry, edit that part out. I love the tool.
No, I don't edit anything. That's how we learned about
That's
this
fine.
podcast. So, web annotation, digital annotation. The starts for me in community college. I was in a survey of American literature, and the instructor required that we all annotate our text, the Heath Anthology, and we literally had to use highlighter, pencil, and write in the margins. There had to be some level and combination of those three things, and every class, we all would come into class, literally line up, and walk our books to the front of the room where he would check the annotations to make sure we did our work on the readings.
Wow. Okay.
Right?
That's a way to do it.
Right?
I guess.
Now, in a physical world, he did what he had to do, but I'll tell you, the practice of going through and annotating that, like I still remember things about Benjamin Franklin and the early Puritan fathers because of the work that we did. in that class. It was just, it stood out to me. And I've kept the practice myself of trying to annotate things as much as possible. Take notes, write things down. I think you do that a good bit, right, Josh? Like
Yeah, I mean, like that's my normal practice when I'm reading, which is like if I'm reading to understand something well, especially in academia when I was taking courses either in undergrad or higher ed. We'll forget about my K-12 days because younger
you weren't
Josh
a student
didn't annotate anything. But yeah, I mean, start annotating. I mean, now my big thing was like I didn't like having multiple tools to do it, right? So like I'm not the person who loved having a highlighter and a pen. Like it was annoying to have to switch between the two. So I would like, pen, underline stuff, lines out to the margins, making notes, little markers to see if I could, identify things that were important to me. I think like it helps me understand things better. It's also like, I think active processing while you're reading, like trying to process and identify things. Like there's a difference between just reading something and then doing that type of annotating. I think that's why you look at the text differently.
And for me, I differentiate those practices I don't have any formal terms, but like if I'm sitting down to annotate something, I call it a pencil book. Like I'm going to get a pencil. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to like mark it up. And if not, I call it a pleasure book. Like I'm sitting there. I'm not going to think twice about this. I'm going to read every word and keep moving, never stop. Both are value. Like I'm not saying that there's any one that is like the best way to do it, but definitely in academia, I know instructors who put a lot of value in that annotation practice for the students. So practically, with web annotation, digital annotation, it just means that we're going to take a PDF, a picture, an Excel spreadsheet or something, or a website and mark it up in some way. It's no different from annotating a physical textbook or a physical book. It's just the practice of doing it digitally. I think that one of the things that really improves for the learning experience is that my instructor in community college, he got to see us one-on-one and he got our books, but there was no social value. Like none of us looked at each other's annotations. We might have had a quick 5-minute discussion at the beginning of class, like, all right, so who thought about something on page 64, and maybe a couple quips. But like digitally, you could share your annotations with the whole class. And a lot of the platforms, the 2 platforms I'm familiar with, actually I guess I could say 3, default to having all of the students see everything at the same time.
Yeah, that's their purpose. I think we see a lot of that in the digital space because there's a lot of desire to have people collaboratively discuss texts, because we're trying to figure out how to discuss things in an online space. Because like, if you're listening, you teach in any online space or help design or do anything in that area, you all know this pain of where it's like, okay, here, go read this text. Now make a post about the text and then respond to each other's posts. But here's the reality. You don't have the text in front of you. Yeah. Which doesn't make it more difficult. Your students have to reference it. Now, there's a value to knowing how to do that because that is, I think, like there's a value to knowing how to pull important parts out of a text and bring it in and integrate it into what you're writing.
Synthesis. It's a big synthesis activity.
Like it's important to know how to do that. At the same time, there's also a lot of value to being able to actually discuss the text in front of you, and to take a look at it.
And it's no surprise. Josh and I have mentioned it before. He's currently in this world, but like Josh and I both went to Bible college. That's where we met in undergraduate. And it's one of those big activities in the Christian faith to sit around with everybody's Bibles open and talk about a certain chapter, right? And that's for like a faith-based purpose. That's a great activity. Of course, everybody gets to look at the text in their version, or they get to talk about why they think something is impactful one way or another. I think there's an opportunity for academia to learn a bit from that. Like more folks should be using the text as a part of the classroom discussion and sharing thoughts based on what's been read. But I know a lot of my faculty wrestle with, well, the students just don't read it in the first place. Boom. To me, boom. The students don't read it in the first place. That's the value of social annotation, of web annotation. If they've annotated it, you can trust that they've at least looked at it once.
Yeah.
Who knows if they got anything, but...
And they're also getting benefit from each other. If you're requiring some type of engagement with each other in this too, in a different way, like imagine the power of taking that in like a lit course or like a language course in there and actually having one of the books or pieces of work that you're reading through and actually having excerpts from it, and they annotate that, you know, looking for, if you're talking about narrative stuff, like looking for narrative movements, looking for important pieces in there, even like even textbooks, like even having some experts from there to have people annotate. Imagine them annotating and discussing concepts in a book, or asking them to identify specific things in a story, like, you know, going in and actually being able to look at that type of stuff. There's broad amounts of ability to do this in different disciplines, I think.
And where I want to make a quick midway foray into the app, but not quite into the app yet, is just to describe a little bit of what's typically possible in digital annotation. So let's just say a PDF of your doctoral dissertation, right? So that doctoral dissertation is going to have graphs, it's going to have data, it's going to have text, it's going to have, you know, probably pretty nice 1-inch margins or whatever, whoever your publisher was that required whatever there's, you know, style requirements are. But with a digital annotation tool, the good ones are going to provide you tools where you can like literally drag and drop a blanket space over a graph, for instance, and make a comment on the whole graph, so that when you say, wow, this graph really shows the distribution of the data really well, you put that in line, and those other students, other interactants, participants will be able to respond directly to your comment on that graph. It's not like everybody's writing in the margins. There's going to be a digital management element to it where all the comments will be chronologically stamped. All the comments will be, you know, related to who posted it. The comments can be on text, or you know, most of the good ones are going to let you put it on an image too. A hypothesis still, you know, Josh will bring this up. A hypothesis doesn't let you put comments on images, for instance. So you got to, you know, do some jerry rigging to make that work.
Minor statement.
Hey.
But that's
good.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, to that point, yeah, that's where we've talked before about how technology can transform what we do. This is a good example of that, in my opinion. Like in web annotation, like it is transforming a practice that we've already had, and giving new life to it. Like it's giving the ability to, you know, lay out these comments. It's giving the ability to use different tools. Like even what I love about web annotation is, like I said, my frustration, right? I hate having like highlighters, pens, and like 500 things sitting in front of me. Annotation tool gives you the ability to do all of those things very quickly and have your students be able to highlight and comment on things all at the same time and track that. And it transforms it in a different way, and it transforms the discussion as well, I think. In
then
ways.
All of that, plus you can search. Like
one of the good ones, yeah.
One of the
that was not a comment to the other tool. Okay, there are other annotation tools out there, and they don't search.
That's just one of those big wins early on in my use of e-texts in my undergraduate studies. If I could search it, man, did that make understanding terminology and glossaries easier. Like if I came across something that I didn't get, I just searched the word real quick. And whether the book had a formal glossary or not, even searching the word within the document to see other instances of that word was helpful. You know, we're talking like a science article or something, and they drop some, you know, molecule term, or they drop some element of like some construct in physics. If I don't understand it, being able to search that document to find better definition of it can really help that practice. Now, if the students are annotating the document, they can search what's in the document, but they can even interact with and search each other's comments. So what helps there is if a student comes across a term that they don't understand, and another student's taken the effort to define that term in their own words or paraphrase it because they struggle with it, now there's this double benefit. Like the first student who wrestled with it, they found the definition, they learned something. The second student who came up to it and stumbled with that same issue can look at that first student's definition and maybe even provide further clarification or their own experience in relationship to the term. Boom. That's I'm going to be like Emerald and just bam it the whole episode here. Bam. That is the value in social annotation. They're doing teaching for you. And we always want that. We want the students to be a part of the teaching and learning experience. I don't believe that they just sit there and blanketly sponge up our material and our content. They should be a part of that whole process.
Yeah. And I think it's actively in a lot of these, now I have a couple other examples that are involved in like just text and language, because I think there's some other places this can be used, but it's actively having them do this while looking through the text. And that's the other thing I find value in it, because I find it often in my experience as a student, when I was trying to come into these like discussion forums, or I was coming into things where I read things and I was just sitting down and we were talking about them in class, there was a certain dynamic where like you had to remember what it was, like you had to make sure you were reading it. So I was annotating anyway. Like I was already annotating. It just wasn't collaborative.
Right.
I was already making annotations because I knew if I didn't, I was going to forget it by the time I actually went to write the discussion. I was going to forget it by the time I got into class, you know, like, and so you're also sometimes getting, while they have time to process thoughts, so you get sometimes more developed thoughts, you're also sometimes losing things they may have noticed. When they're looking at things. And so that's one of the things I like about collaborative annotation. I will say there's some power in this type of this idea, beyond just like, because we've used a lot of examples, I think, from like kind of textual ideas, like reading through articles, reading through textbooks, works of writing, all that type of stuff. But it's not just that. I would love to implement something like this in like a marketing, graphic design type of course, because we said, a lot of these tools can bring in websites. And so it'd be really cool to bring in like an actual website and have students comment on the design of the website. Have them take a look at it. Like if you have an example, you know, what did they do? What did they do poorly here? You know, what are some of the things that are here? What are some good design movements? Or like if you're specifically focusing on a certain type of design or topic, you can bring those in.
Yeah.
And actually comment on them. And the ones who do it well allow you to comment on, I think, images and some things. And so it gives you an extra ability.
I'm laughing over here, folks. I mean, Josh and I just have this like undercurrent of which tool is better in our conversation.
I'm not hiding my opinion. Okay.
No, that's what we're here to do.
That's what we're here to do.
Announce our opinions. As much as that terrifies me, we're here to.
Because I would love to see. I think this has application in a bunch of different places, both from an online space to even like hybrid and even face-to-face classes. Like to have assignments where they go do collaborative annotation, or they go do annotation, you come back and discuss it in class. Like stuff like that, I think has power. To it. I just think it's a good way to analyze and process text, information, things like that, leveraging something that we already should be encouraging our students to do, which is kind of this active reading, carefully, you know, looking at what they're reading and analyzing, taking that and putting it into a cool space where they can actually benefit from each other's comments, and in a fluid way. Because I think we'll get into this in a later episode, but I think that's one of the failings of our current like discussion system. There's some positives to it, absolutely, but we don't discuss around content like we do in actual classrooms. And sometimes it creates a disjointed experience, I think, for students, and sometimes you lose some valuable information or learning out of that because of that.
Yeah, and it kind of kills the like spontaneous approach to discussion. So some of the value is just somebody being like, you know, quickly connecting a thought and like, oh, hey, by the way, did you think of blah, blah, blah? And that connection can be really valuable for everybody in the room. Now, I wanted to also kind of reference the fact that web annotation and the whole buildup here on annotation is on text. Josh made a great pivot to consider like, hey, graphic design, web design, that's another thing. The tool we're going to discuss in a little bit actually allows you to embed videos, right? So the value of annotating anything is to directly interrogate the content. Like that's my attitude about it. Like tell the students you are interrogating the book, the website, the graphic, the video, whatever it is. Ask it questions, take it apart, criticize it. You are in a free space to be the best encourager and the biggest critic of this text. You know, make sure you take it seriously and dig in. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool, I think, that, you know, in a web annotation, a digital annotation world, we invite this collaborative element. Josh and I have already hit that, but we have this hypermedia element. Like, you can annotate anything, and we should, because even today, I want to annotate things I see on Twitter all the time. Like, oh, if only I could come, and you can comment, but I think there's a different opportunity there for folks to kind of come back at you in comments and troll you and stuff. I want it to be more of like an intellectual, critical approach as opposed to just the social media approach.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You can add in, like you said, we'll get into the tool here in a second, but like thinking through, it doesn't just have to be images of site. It can be video. It can be, ironically, the tool we're going to talk about. You can comment on podcasts. It could be really, I think, any type of medium is where these web annotation tools are going. And I think what's interesting is see how they develop, is because this is one of those ed tech tools that I think is still being developed. Like this idea.
Yeah.
Is being developed, not necessarily the specific tools, but like it's not the along the path as far as some of our other things like collaborative documents and things like that. There's, I think, still kind of an idea of what this could look like, annotated
and
web annotation.
And to your point there, Josh, like it's a pretty small market, and so it takes a little bit of effort to find the best thing. You know, you really need to peruse about and find the right thing for you.
There it is, transition.
Because the tool that we have in mind tonight is called Perusall. Peruse, like I just said, and the ALL all word at the end of it. We'll make sure there's links and all that good junk. But Perusall as a tool.
Oh, I finally get the name. Sorry, that never clicked with me until right now. Perusall. Okay,
yep.
See?
Perusall. Yep.
I've said this like 400 times, and it's never...
You heard it here first, folks.
Until
Josh
this
just
immediate moment. Okay. I'm an idiot. Okay, continue.
No, not in the least. Not in the least. You're not an idiot, my friend. So what's, I think, really important introducing this tool, Perusall, briefly to compare it and contrast it against Hypothesis will set the stage. Hypothesis is a browser-based web annotation tool. I think they market themselves that way. I think it's a very fair way to put it that way. Hypothesis wants you to go to every website out there and mark it up and ask questions and dig in. Perusall is a web or digital annotation tool, right? And I say the web, or like you could put in a website if you printed a PDF out of it or something, or you can put, I don't remember if you can put a link in directly or not, but it's more specifically a digital annotation tool. Hypothesis, built for websites. Perusall is built for you to put in your own media. And I'll just put this disclaimer out there right away, right? They actually have a publishing arm to themselves, and so Perusall's actually looking to make money in the publishing space, having content and textbooks and stuff like that integrated into their platform so that folks can make money, you know, off of textbook sales and stuff like that. To that point, Perusall is actually one of the better freemium products that Josh and I think that we've recommended when it comes to price. They are completely free for you to use any of your own materials with as many classes and students as you want. Completely free. If you upload your own videos, if you put in YouTube videos, if you upload your own PDFs, no cost. The only time they start to cost money is if you want to use their partnered published content. So if it's a textbook they support, if it's, you know, I don't know, PDFs and stuff that they have in their library, you have to pay to get access to that stuff. But otherwise, frankly, most instructors, I think, are going to benefit from the fact that you have created, especially because of COVID, your own videos. You have created some of your own lecture material. You have your own PowerPoints, etc. If you can upload it like a file format, PDF, PowerPoint, video, audio, if you can upload it into Perusall, your students can annotate it. And that's like the big power of this one. And frankly, it's actually a pretty robust system. It's got assignments, it's got due dates, it's got a whole lot to it. I haven't gone that far. I just really am like so excited just about how much you can annotate in it and how easy it is to annotate.
Yeah, I've dug into it a good bit too, from our end, because I think like for context, how we got to this tool was, I think, you discovered it through some method. I forget how it came
I think I
across
just was trying to like compare it again. Like I was like looking for options other than Hypothesis, frankly.
And then you mentioned it to me and another coworker, and I dug into it a bit because I love the web annotation idea, and we were very depressed when we had to remove the current tool we had for it, and took a look at it. And to Will's point, yeah, it's a pretty robust tool. I mean, like there's a calendar, you basically add things in, you can assign them out to people. Now, I will say, for those of you who are interested in institutional level, it does integrate with learning management systems. I have not tested that myself, so I can't give you a bunch of information on it. That's my disclaimer, but from what I can tell, it works well. And what I like about this tool, and I'm excited about, like to Will's comment, They have a pretty like hard statement about them being free with some like a paid version if you want to get like an institutional type of license to get some other
That comes with
add-ons
branding,
and
the
things with, like,
integration,
branding
Canvas.
and integrations.
Yeah.
But if you look at their history, I mean, they've been they released the tool in 2015, so they've been around for about 6 years. And they spawned out of a basically Harvard research project, which I feel like you could say about half of EdTech tools.
Harvard, Stanford, Yale.
Yeah, Harvard, Stanford, or Yale. It came out of a research project somewhere there. And they've been releasing it. And they're out to like, it looks like 3,000 different institutions. They've got somewhere of a number of like 1 million different students involved. So like they're out there. So I feel confident in them that they'll be here for a little while. And I'm not nervous about necessarily them starting to charge.
Yeah.
Because they have some statements about like they don't have investors that are pushing for anything. Like they're trying to keep themselves open source as much as possible, I think. And it looks like most of these guys running this have other things, like other gigs.
They're not out there to make $1 million or to become the next EdTech startup to be sold. That's the attitude I get. Like they believe in annotation, and so they've built a tool that does it well.
Yeah. So I would have confidence in using the tool, I think, in this piece. Now, that's all good stuff, but let's talk a little bit about the actual ability of web annotating in this tool, right? So we talked about we can upload pretty much anything. And so just to kind of go over that again, although I put myself in a test student view in the tool, so I don't remember how to get myself out now.
Good luck with that. We're not full-time users. We've just used it. And I actually have had a faculty adopt it. So a faculty member used it this past semester, and it went really well for her, which is encouraging. But she only had the students annotate. She didn't use the assignment. She didn't use any of the fun stuff. She didn't put any videos in. So it was just some PDFs. But for that, it went really well for her.
And I think there's very much you can do that way. If I was going to use this because I work in an institution that already has an LMS, one, I would integrate it with the LMS that we have because that's there. And two, I'm not going to use a lot of their stuff like Gradebook and stuff like that because it's just not necessary for us. And I think there'd be a lot of instructors who would be in a similar position. They're not going to be really using the Gradebook features in here. But you can basically, just to kind of go over everything you could upload again, you can add in, they have a catalog of stuff that you could access, which is somewhat of what they're trying to get purchase money from. But you can add in like web pages, stuff straight from like Dropbox, from your computer, videos, podcasts. The list goes on. Like they have a pretty decent sized list of what you can add in there. And again, what it does is what I love about this tool that I haven't had in some past experiences with other ones that will go unnamed, is that when you pull in a website, the website functions really well too. So like I pulled in, we did a couple tests, right? And I pulled in a digital textbook that I have in here, and a bunch of like links and things to the different areas of the books and stuff like that. Works perfectly. They can click through it just like they're on the website, and leave comments anywhere in the text that's in there. We uploaded some documents and things like that. You can leave. What I really like about that, Will, I think you were the one who pointed it out to me. You can actually, they have two options in here for tools of commenting. So if somebody gets in here and starts commenting, they can select to comment on text, or they can select this annotate figure tool that's in here, which is really cool. And this allows you to kind of free comment on things. So they can comment on images directly inside a PDF or another document.
Big thing for that too is just that it creates autonomy in the annotation, because like text means they have to be able to highlight something to annotate it. With the free image or graph annotator, if they really just wanted to put a comment on the whole page, for instance, they could highlight the whole page. That's kind of goofy visually, so they could just highlight like some white space and leave a comment like, hey, here's a comment for page 63. I think the whole page really should be pointing us to blah, blah, blah. And actually, if you cross-reference page 75, it could. That, to me, is the freedom that like the, drag and drop feature is so great for. I want them to have the option to just select a word or select a specific sentence, right? And that's really important that they have the text select annotation. Mm-hmm. But so that they can annotate anything other than text, the drag and drop is wonderful, and it works so well.
Practical application too to what we mentioned earlier. Like if you're bringing a website of some sort, or you're bringing like a document and you want them to comment on the image, for instance, think of like a photography class, like comment on sections of the images. of what they did. Like this tool gives you the ability the student can actually box out and highlight a section of an image and leave a comment there and start discussing. And what I also love about this tool that I get very frustrated with our learning management system discussions is that you can @mention someone in here. So students can @mention each other. And that's so important because they can notify each other. And that seems like such a novelty today because all of the tools do it.
Right.
But our like digital tools that we do education and learning management systems don't seem to have gotten that notice about like how important @mentioning is.
I can people in like WhatsApp. I can people in Outlook now. I can people in Facebook, of course, but I can't people in Canvas. Like what?
Yeah, or other LMSs. I haven't gone through all of them, right?
Right,
But
right.
there's most of them, the major tools. That's not a thing, and so I do like that you can do that. The other thing I think is really cool is that, as Will mentioned here, it then kind of aggregates all of these comments. And so there's a toolbar on the side that allows, when you're leaving comments, for someone to click through and actually look through all the discussions that have been going on, all the conversations. And it will drop them in. It'll show what page they're on, and you can click around into those different discussions of what's going on. And again, what I love about this is it's contextually putting the discussion over it with the document. It's in line with it. They can scroll through the document. So when somebody says, you know, I don't know if I agree with this part of what the author wrote, he doesn't have to go, okay, let me open my book to page 5, figure out what they wrote. Okay, I'll look at the
Page
small quote they made,
5.
but what's the context of
Right.
what's here? No, they don't have to do that. They literally just look on the page and go, okay, that's exactly what they said. I can quickly respond to their thoughts here and actually start a conversation. And then you as the instructor have the ability to see all of those conversations, know how often they've been responding. And there's even like other cool features to add into this with why I think this tool is robust. There's a read aloud piece too that's integrated into the tool. So accessibility, like it can read, do out loud reading for this stuff. Now I've not tested this with screen readers and stuff like that, so I don't know for sure how that all plays in, but
there's even, I mean, I'm just looking at it on my left side here, Josh, and I was checking on our content. There's a new feature that this has been added this spring semester. I didn't see it when I was prepping stuff for a class this semester. They have a folder option where the students can upload content. So primarily everything that you put in there is for you to put to them. It's really cool that you could put a folder in there for them to upload their own stuff and then interact. Like that could be great for peer review. That could be great just for, you know, like, hey, everybody grab an article this week about our subject area and submit that for review. Hashtags. It does use hashtags in all the commenting. So I'm looking at it in the bottom left-hand side of my screen here. Like you could click on anything that's labeled hashtag grades, for instance, and students would be able to pull that up, or you'd be able to pull that up and see anywhere where you or they have asked a question about grades or given a suggestion on something that might be relevant to grades. And of course, insert, you know, relevant content here. If you were talking about physics, you could, you know, hashtag certain equations or specific theories, right? So cool to know that this pretty robust system isn't just put in a PDF and, you know, highlight a couple lines. Like it is a super tool. It is a Swiss Army knife for annotation. So I love it. I couldn't sing its praises higher. I know that there's definitely some things you'd have to work out if you're trying to do like an institutional license, but functionally at an instructor to instructor level, because it's free, because it's easy to use, because it's easy for students to sign up, we didn't have any issues with the instructor who used it this spring. I know that's a small sample size, but she didn't have any issues with students getting in, using the link, joining up, and getting going. So I'd love to see more folks use this and kind of, it is its own advocacy for better reading practices, which I think almost all reading should be a part of an annotation process.
Yeah, and that's like, it's, I think there's just, what I like about Perusall is it has a good stability to it. It has all the things I'm looking for in an annotation tool when I'm doing it, because it gives the students the ability to quickly analyze text, add broader spaces into it. You can upload things like websites and PDFs and documents. And then it just adds, they do a good job of adding other things on top of that are really helpful. Like I was just looking right now, like it will show you at a glance as an instructor how many comments have been made, the average read time on the document. I don't know if you've noticed that it gives you an average read time.
That's great.
So it'll walk through and do all of that. It's really cool. That I haven't dug deep into it. I know they have some analytics and reports as an instructor you can pull out of there. that you can get in there as well. So it gives you some information on how students are reading as well, which I think is useful. And that's why I think like it's to do the tool, to use it, it doesn't take that much. It's you create an account. Yes, there's some institutional things to it, but if you're able to use it without going through institutional stuff, it's not that hard for you. It's pretty easy. And there's also you can invite students in, like if you can't integrate it with an LMS, or you don't have an LMS where you're at, whatever you're doing, it's fairly easy you can actually get an invite code and give it to someone, and they can easily get in and create an account, which is really cool. That's what I did with Will earlier. We pulled each other into ours, and I
we had different courses. Like here's my code. Okay, jumped in. Oh, I see you. Cool. We're going.
Yeah, go ahead, just jump into there. So, it's pretty cool, and they have good support too. So like, we will link this out in the document that's tied to this, but they have a help center. It's pretty solid. They've got a lot of guides on how to use the tool, both for students and instructors. So, I think it's a cool tool. I think it'd be easy to just look for a place where you're going to have your students do some reading or analyze something and think, how could this be changed if they're able to annotate it? And that would be my starting point. And then just take a look at Perusall. I think Perusall is a good tool to start with.
Well, folks, I think that's a wrap for this week. We love this subject. It's something that Josh and I care very deeply about in the context of our own personal learning, as well as what we think is important for the classroom and what we can do both in a physical and virtual class. So we hope that just one more tool in your toolbox will help you learn a little bit about how to harness this stuff to make it all the better. Tune in next week. We'll be back again. Until then, see ya.
See ya.